What if the biggest mistake of your life turned out to be the opportunity that changed everything? What if one exhausted decision at 11 p.m. put you face to face with a man who didn't belong in your world at all? Because that's exactly what happened to Angeline the night she got into the wrong car and accidentally fell asleep in it. Angeline had been running on fumes for days. 2 back-to-back shifts at the cafe. 3 looming exams. 4 hours of sleep spread across 2 days. Her body felt heavy, her eyes burned, and her thoughts moved like they were stuck in syrup. Cheap coffee had stopped working hours ago. She was operating on nothing but stubborn determination. So when she stepped out of the library at 11 p.m. and saw a sleek black car waiting at the curb, she didn't double-check the license plate. It was black. It was parked where her Uber should have been. That was good enough for someone barely conscious. She opened the back door and slid in without hesitation. The first thing she noticed, through the haze of exhaustion, was the seat. Soft. Plush. Not just comfortable, suspiciously comfortable. The kind of leather that felt expensive under her fingertips. But her brain didn't process the red flag. It processed relief. She let her head fall back. Just for a second. Just to rest her eyes. And then everything went dark. The sleep that swallowed her wasn't gentle, it was absolute. Deep. Dreamless. The kind of sleep you only get when your body finally overrides your anxiety. For the first time in weeks, she wasn't thinking about bills or exams or early morning shifts. Until a voice cut cleanly through the darkness. Low. Calm. Amused. Do you usually break into other people's cars, or am I getting special treatment? Her eyes flew open. Panic hit first. Sharp and electric. She wasn't alone. A man was sitting right beside her. Close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. Close enough to catch the scent of expensive cologne, rich and subtle, not ing like the overpowering sprays she was used to. She jerked upright too fast, and the world tilted for a second. He wasn't wearing a rideshare driver's polo. He was in a perfectly tailored dark suit. Crisp lines. Custom fit. The kind of suit that didn't wrinkle. His hair looked effortlessly styled, like he'd spent time making it appear like he hadn't. His jawline was sharp, his expression controlled, and there was a knowing curve to his mouth that made her stomach flip with equal parts irritation and confusion. He was not an Uber driver. Her voice came out rough from sleep. I thought this was my Uber. I wasn't trying to break into your car. He tilted his head slightly, studying her like she was unexpectedly entertaining. Technically, he said smoothly, that's exactly what you did. And for the record, you snored for 20 minutes. Her entire face burned. I don't snore. You do. Lightly, he replied. It was kind of adorable. If the earth had opened up beneath her, she would have gladly disappeared into it. That's when she finally took in her surroundings properly. This wasn't just a nice car. This was absurd. There was polished wood trim along the doors. Touchscreen panels embedded seamlessly into the interior. And was that? A built-in minibar. Who has a minibar in their car? Her stomach dropped. You're not an Uber driver, she said slowly. He leaned back, completely at ease, as if finding exhausted college students in his back seat was a normal Tuesday night. Noah Priestley, he said calmly. And this is my car. The one you hijacked for a power nap. The name didn't ring a bell. But the way he said it did. Like it was supposed to. Everything about him radiated quiet authority. Not loud arrogance. Controlled power. The kind that didn't need to announce itself. I am so sorry, she rushed out. I worked all day. I've been studying nonstop. I wasn't thinking. I'll get out. She reached for the handle. It's 11:30 at night, he said evenly. What part of the city are you in? None of your business, she shot back automatically, exhaustion sharpening her tone. To her surprise, he laughed. A real one. Low and warm, not mocking. Fair, he admitted. But considering you slept in my car, I think I'm allowed a minimal level of concern. She hesitated. Let me drive you home, he added. I don't need charity. It's not charity. He leaned slightly closer, not threatening, just steady. It's common sense. It's late. It's not the safest area. And technically, you're already in a car. She knew she should refuse. She should step out, order the correct ride, and pretend this never happened. But she was exhausted. And walking alone that late didn't feel smart. Fine, she muttered. But if you're secretly a serial killer, I'm going to be extremely annoyed. Noted. He tapped the glass partition. James, we can go. The car moved, smooth, silent, nothing like the shaky ride she was used to. She gave the driver her address and tried to ignore the way Noah occasionally glanced at her, like she was some unexpected puzzle. So, he said after a moment, why are you that exhausted? She didn't usually open up to strangers. But there was no condescension in his voice. Just curiosity. Full-time college, she said quietly. 2 jobs. I sleep 4 or 5 hours when I'm lucky. That's not sustainable. Wealth must be nice, she replied dryly. Some of us have to work to survive. He didn't bristle. He smiled faintly. Touché. But you're running yourself into the ground. And you, she challenged, meeting his dark gaze. I'm guessing 80-hour weeks. No sleep. Just, with better chairs. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. Maybe. The difference is, I have a choice. That landed harder than she expected. She turned toward the window as the scenery shifted. Cleaner streets gave way to older buildings. Dim streetlights. Faded paint. Graffiti. Not dangerous, but not polished. She felt his eyes take it in. The car stopped. In front of her building. She reached for the handle again. I need a personal assistant, he said suddenly. Her hand froze mid-movement. What? He pulled a sleek card from inside his jacket and held it out to her. Even the paper looked expensive. I need someone to organize my schedule. Handle emails. Oversee the house when I travel. And you, his eyes swept over her in quiet assessment, clearly need a job that won't destroy you. I don't need charity, she repeated, but the words didn't sound as firm. It's not charity, Angeline. The way he said her name made her blink. Then she realized he must have seen it on the rideshare app. It's an exchange, he continued. You help me. I pay you well. Flexible hours. Nothing more complicated than that. The card felt heavy between her fingers. I'm not promising I'll call. I'm not asking for promises. He leaned back, composed again. Just think about it. She stepped out of the car, cool night air hitting her face. The door shut softly behind her. The vehicle pulled away, smooth, silent, disappearing down the street like something out of another world. She stood there for a second, staring at the card in her hand. Then she turned, climbed the 3 narrow flights of stairs to her tiny apartment, her mind racing far too fast for someone who had been asleep minutes earlier. Because she had gotten into the wrong car. And somehow, it felt like she had just stepped into the right story. I dropped my bag onto the apartment floor and just stood there for a second, staring at the thick, cream-colored business card in my hand. Embossed gold letters caught the light from our flickering ceiling lamp. Noah Priestley. C.O. Below it, a private number. A business address. My brain still hadn't processed the fact that just hours ago, I had accidentally fallen asleep in a billionaire's car. Christy, my roommate and best friend, stepped out of her bedroom, her hair twisted into a messy bun that looked like it had survived a small hurry. Kane. Are you okay? You're late. I got into the wrong Uber, I muttered, tossing the card onto the coffee table before collapsing onto our exhausted, sagging couch. And the car's owner offered me a job. Silence. Then movement. Christy snatched the card off the table, her eyes scanning it once, and then widening dramatically. Wait. Noah Priestley? The Noah Priestley? Angel, he's a billionaire. I shut my eyes, exhaustion dragging me under like quicksand. Yeah. Apparently. He's one of the richest CEOs in the city, she continued, staring at me like I had just casually mentioned I'd borrowed a cup of sugar from royalty. And you slept in his car. Then she burst out laughing, that loud, infectious laugh that always dragged one out of me, even when I tried to resist. Only you, she said between breaths. Only me. For 3 days, I tried to pretend that card didn't exist. I went to work. I went to class. I studied. I survived. But rent was overdue. My cafe manager started cutting my hours without warning. My bank account dipped dangerously close to zero. And during one of my exams, I was so sleep-deprived I nearly blacked out halfway through an essay question. The card never moved from the coffee table. Until Christy picked it up again. You are an absolute idiot if you don't call him. It's charity, I protested weakly. It's a job, she shot back. One that pays better and won't kill you. She gave me that look, the one that didn't allow room for pride or excuses. Is your pride going to pay the rent? No. It wasn't. And we both knew it. The next morning, I dialed the number. My fingers trembled, just slightly, as the phone rang. Once. Twice. 3 times. Priestley. That voice. Deep. Controlled. Unmistakable. It's Angeline Torres, I said, trying to sound confident and failing spectacularly. The girl who broke into your car. There was a brief pause. Then a low, amused chuckle. Didn't think you'd call. Neither did I admitted. But I need money more than I need pride. Brutal honesty felt easier than pretending. When can you start? Tomorrow, I said quickly, maybe too quickly. Perfect. I'll send the address. Be ready at 9. The line clicked dead. Just like that. The next morning, a sleek black car pulled up outside our apartment building. Not Noah, but James, his driver. Polite. Professional. Efficient. We drove across the city, farther than I'd ever gone for anything other than window shopping dreams. And then I saw it. The mansion. 3 floors of unapologetic wealth. Perfectly trimmed gardens. A fountain out front that probably cost more than my entire college education. It wasn't just big. It was excessive. And I felt painfully small walking toward the front door. Before I could knock, it opened. A woman in her 60s greeted me warmly. Gray hair pulled into an elegant bun. Kind eyes that missed absolutely nothing. You must be Angeline. I'm Mrs. Dawson. Her voice was gentle, steady, reassuring. Come in, dear. Mr. Priestley is in his office. The inside was somehow even more overwhelming. High ceilings. Marble floors so polished they reflected my nervous expression back at me. Artwork lining the walls that looked museum-worthy. Every step echoed. Mrs. Dawson led me down a hallway to 2 massive mahogany doors. She knocked lightly. Mr. Priestley, Miss Torres has arrived. Come in. That voice again. My stomach flipped. Noah sat behind a massive desk, fingers moving across his laptop keyboard. When I stepped inside, his eyes lifted. White shirt. Sleeves rolled to his elbows. Calm. Focused. Slightly dangerous. A slow, knowing smile curved his mouth. You didn't run. I need the money, I replied. He stood. I like honest. He walked around the desk, too close for comfort. Or maybe just close enough to make breathing slightly inconvenient. Let's discuss terms. We spent the next hour reviewing responsibilities. organizing his chaotic schedule, managing emails, coordinating with Mr. S. Dawson, travel arrangements, filtering business noise from actual priorities. The salary he offered made my brain stall. That's too generous. It's fair for the work, he said evenly. Then his tone sharpened slightly. And I want to be clear, Angeline. This is a job, not a favor. You will work. You will earn your salary. Nothing more. Something inside my chest unclenched. Understood. He extended his hand. Welcome to the team. When our palms met, a sharp electric awareness shot up my arm. His eyes flickered, just slightly, as if he felt it too. We both let go half a second too late. Just work. That's what I told myself. Mrs. Dawson showed me my office. Noah explained his disastrously unorganized system of reminders, vague notes like call M about the thing, which I quickly decoded as call Marcus, the lawyer, about a multi-million-dollar merger. The first few weeks were chaos. 16-hour days. Double-booked meetings. Tokyo calls at strange hours. Investor proposals. Financial reports. I rebuilt his entire schedule from scratch, color-coded, streamlined, precise. I answered emails with a confidence I didn't know I had. I filtered urgency from nonsense. With Mrs. Dawson's quiet guidance, the household ran like clockwork. And Noah noticed. I could see it in the way one eyebrow would lift slightly before he gave a subtle nod of approval. But admiration never turned into closeness. He maintained distance like it was policy. Cancel the 3 o'clock. Reschedule Tokyo. Financial reports tomorrow. Always moving. Always focused. Never lingering. I should have been grateful for the space. It made it easier to ignore how my stomach tightened when I heard the front door open late at night. Easier to pretend I didn't recognize the rhythm of his footsteps upstairs. Easier to dismiss the creak of his office chair when he sat down for yet another round of midnight work. Until that Tuesday. 2 in the morning. The mansion was silent, the kind of silence it felt expensive. I went downstairs to study. Exams were approaching, and the kitchen island under a single overhead light felt like neutral territory. Books spread out. Notes scattered. My eyes burned, but I pushed through. Sleep is for the weak. His voice made me jump. Noah stood barefoot at the kitchen entrance, wearing sweatpants and a fitted t-shirt. His hair was slightly messy, jaw shadowed with stubble. He looked less like a billionaire CEO. More like a man who hadn't slept enough. Says the person studying at 2 a.m., he added. He grabbed a bottle of water and leaned against the island across from me. Too close. Or maybe it was just the hour. I have an exam, I muttered, pretending to read the same line for the 6th time. And you? Investor proposal. It needs to be perfect. He studied me carefully. You're killing yourself. Work in school. And you're killing yourself working, I shot back. For a second, he smiled. Not the polished corporate version. A real one. It changed his whole face. Touché. The air shifted. Thicker. Charged. Neither of us moved. Then, like a switch flipping, the distance returned. Don't stay up too late, he said evenly. I need you functional tomorrow. Yes, sir. A hint of irony slipped into my voice. He shook his head slightly before walking out. I didn't go back to studying. I just stared at the empty doorway, heart beating faster than caffeine alone could justify. And of course, Mrs. Dawson noticed. She always did. The following Thursday, while I organized files in the main office, she appeared beside me carrying tea. And that look. The knowing one. The kind that said she'd seen stories like this before. And maybe, just maybe, she knew exactly how dangerous just work could become. Mrs. Dawson gave me a soft, knowing smile, the kind that made me want to disappear behind my laptop screen. "You're doing wonderful work here, dear," she said warmly, setting a teacup beside me before lowering herself into the armchair. I are across the room. "Mr. Priestley is far more organized lately. He even mentioned it yesterday." "It's my job," I replied evenly, keeping my eyes on the documents in front of me. She steadied me in that quiet, maternal way of hers. "In 10 years working in this house, I've never seen Mr. Priestley laugh." She paused just long enough for the words to sink in. "Not until you arrived. Now he laughs. Not often, but he does. And it's because of you." Heat crept up my neck. I focused harder on the spreadsheet, as if numbers could shield me. "We're just sarcastic with each other," I said lightly. "We match in that sense. Dear," she continued gently, "I've seen many assistants come and go. Some beautiful. Some brilliant. Some both. None of them made him look the way he looks at you." Her expression wasn't teasing. It was observant. Careful. "I'm only saying," she added, "that sometimes the lines between boss and employee blur." I opened my mouth to respond, but the words tangled. I couldn't afford blurred lines. I needed this job. The stability. The paycheck. The structure. Letting feelings interfere would be reckless. "It's just work," I said firmly. "It has to stay just work." She nodded, though her knowing smile didn't fade. "Of course, dear. Whatever you say." The universe apparently decided to test that statement the very next week. I woke up Monday morning feeling like I'd been run over twice. My throat burned. My head throbbed with a dull, relentless pulse. Every muscle in my body ached as if I'd spent the night fighting something invisible and losing. But I couldn't call in sick. Not now. Not when I finally had a job that paid my bills and gave me back a sense of dignity. So I swallowed cold medicine, drank coffee like it was a miracle cure, and went to work. Noah had meetings scheduled all day, which meant I could hide in my office. I answered emails, organized contracts, filed reports, all while shivering beneath the cardigan I'd layered over my blouse. The mansion's temperature was perfectly regulated. My body was the only malfunctioning system. By 3 in the afternoon, I was running purely on stubbornness. That's when Noah walked in. He stepped into my office mid-sentence, asking for a file, and then stopped abruptly. "Are you okay?" There was something different in his voice. Sharp. Focused. "I'm perfectly fine," I lied, blinking at the screen as the letters blurred slightly. "Which file did you need?" He didn't answer. He walked around my desk. Before I could react, his hand pressed against my forehead. His palm was cool. Steady. The contrast against my overheated skin made my breath itch. The gesture was so unexpected, so intimate, that I froze. "You're burning up," he said quietly. "Why are you working?" "Because it's my job." I gently pulled away, even though a treacherous part of me wanted to lean into that touch. "I'm fine." "You're not." His tone shifted instantly, concern hardening into authority. The CEO voice. The one that closed million-dollar deals and commanded boardrooms. "You're done for the day. Go to the guest room and rest." "That's not a suggestion." "Noah, I can't." "I'm paying you even when you're sick," he cut in firmly. "Go upstairs. Now. I'll have Mrs. Dawson prepare the room." My pride wanted to argue. My exhausted body wanted to cry in relief. When I stood, the room tilted slightly. Noah's hand was there immediately, steadying my elbow. "Can you walk?" The concern was back. "I can," I said, but I didn't pull away when he guided me toward the stairs. His hand on my arm was warm. Solid. Grounding. Each step felt distant and unreal except for that contact. Mrs. Dawson was already turning down the bed when we entered the guest room. "Poor girl," she murmured. Works too hard. Doesn't eat properly. I'll make soup. I sank into the mattress, pulling the blanket to my chin. The room spun faintly, and I closed my eyes to stop it. Low voices murmured at the doorway, Noah and Mrs. Dawson, but T. Words blurred together. Then sleep claimed me completely. I woke to the soft sound of the door opening. The room was bathed in late afternoon gold. The light filtered through the curtains in warm streaks. Noah stepped inside carrying a tray. Steam rose from a bowl resting on it. Mrs. Dawson made soup, he said, setting the tray on the nightstand before sitting carefully on the edge of the bed. The mattress dipped slightly under his weight. You brought it, though, I observed softly. A faint smile curved his lips. I insisted. She resisted. I paid more. I let out a small laugh that quickly turned into a cough. Figuratively, he clarified, amused. But she understood. He handed me the bowl. You need to stop working yourself into the ground. Says the man who sleeps 4 hours a night and works weekends, I replied, raising an eyebrow over the rim of the bowl. You have no moral authority here. Touché. That smile again, genuine. Disarming. But I choose to overwork, he added quietly. You do it because you think you don't have a choice. It's because I don't, I admitted before I could stop myself. College isn't cheap. Life isn't cheap. His expression softened. I know, he said. But you work for me now. And part of my job is making sure you don't collapse in my office. That would look terrible on my resume. I laughed more carefully this time. How considerate. I ate while he remained seated beside me. It should have felt strange, this closeness created by illness and concern. But it didn't. It felt natural. Dangerously natural. When I finished, I handed the bowl back. Our fingers brushed. It was brief. Accidental. And electric. My pulse stumbled. His eyes met mine, steady, searching. The space between our hands felt charged. It would have been so easy to close that distance. To acknowledge what was hovering in the air between us. He stood first. Rest, he said, picking up the tray. I'll check on you later. Noah, I began, unsure what I meant to say. Thank you. Stay? Don't leave? Just rest, Angeline. He paused at the door, glancing back. That's an order from your boss. And then he was gone, leaving me alone with a heart that refused to calm down and thoughts that were absolutely not professional. The next morning, Christy arrived. Noah must have called her, because she burst into the mansion with wide eyes and barely restrained disbelief. This house is obscene, were her first words as Mrs. Dawson led her upstairs. When she reached my bedside, she stared around the room in awe. How do you work here and stay sane? With difficulty, I replied, my voice still rough but my body far better after nearly 16 hours of sleep. Thanks for coming. Of course I came, she said, sitting beside me. Noah Priestley personally called me. Personally. He didn't send an assistant. He didn't delegate it. He called. Explained your symptoms in detail. He's just a good boss, I insisted, though even to my own ears, the words sounded thin. Angel. She grabbed my hand. He's obsessed. He is not. Before she could argue further, the door opened. Noah stepped in and stopped when he saw Christy. Something flickered across his face. Surprise. Maybe even mild irritation at the interruption. Sorry. I didn't realize you had a visitor. His gaze shifted to me. How are you feeling? Better, I said softly. Christy's eyes darted between us, practically analyzing body language. Mr. Priestley, she said suddenly, standing. May I speak to you outside for a moment? He looked genuinely taken aback, but nodded. Of course. They stepped into the hallway. The door remained slightly ajar. Christie's voice carried, low but unmistakable. You like her. Silence. Don't hide behind formalities, she pressed. You like her. It's obvious in the way you look at her. In the way you called me worried. In the way you're here. Instead of buried in your office. A beat. You're a terrible liar for a billionaire. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. Finally, Noah's voice answered. Low. Tired. It's complicated. She works for me. She deserves more than this. This what? Christie shot back. A man who clearly cares about her. Who makes sure she eats and rests. Who looks at her like she's the most interesting person in the room. Another pause. Angel's been poor her whole life, Christie continued, softer now. What she deserves is someone who truly sees her. Silence. And you see her. I didn't hear what he said next, if he said anything at all. The door closed completely. When Christie returned, her smile was far too satisfied. I planted the seed, she announced. What seed? I asked, even though deep down, I already knew. What happens when the walls we carefully build to protect ourselves begin to split? 2 months passed in a blur. Color-coded schedules. Back-to-back meetings. Endless email threads. Late-night strategy sessions. On paper, everything looked efficient, perfect, even. We had found a rhythm. A routine. But comfort never came. Instead, something else grew. The tension between Noah and me wasn't loud. It didn't explode. It didn't announce itself. It simmered. It lingered in glances that lasted half a second too long. In fingers brushing when we exchanged folders. In conversations that started strictly professional and somehow drifted into favorite childhood songs or the foods we secretly hated. I became an expert at pretending. Pretending I didn't notice how my pulse shifted the second he stepped into a room. Pretending I didn't recognize his cologne before I even looked up. Pretending I didn't count the hours until he came home late at night, just so we could exchange a few quiet words in the kitchen before retreating to separate wings of that enormous, carefully neutral mansion. We had rules. Professionalism. Distance. Structure. But the cracks in our carefully construct. Ted Wall were spreading. I need you to come with me to Boston. It was a Thursday afternoon when he said it. He entered my office with that contained, deliberate energy that meant something important was coming. Meeting with potential investors, he continued. It's critical. I need you there. Organize the documents. Make sure everything's flawless. When? I asked, already pulling up my calendar. Tomorrow. Back Sunday. He leaned casually against my desk, and I hated how aware I was of the subtle tension in his arms beneath his shirt. Short notice. 3 days. Alone. In another city. No problem, I said evenly. I'll arrange everything. My voice stayed steady. My stomach did not. The next morning, I stepped onto a private jet for the first time in my life. I tried to keep my expression neutral as I climbed the narrow stairs, but the interior stole my breath. It didn't look like a plane. It looked like a floating penthouse. Cream leather seats. Polished mahogany tables. Soft recessed lighting. A full workstation with built-in screens and even a printer. First time? Noah asked, amusement flickering in his eyes. Is it that obvious? I sank into one of the seats, the leather molding perfectly to my body. I usually fly economy, I added. Between a crying baby and someone who believes the armrest belongs to them by birthright. He laughed, a real one. Welcome to the other side, he said. Babies are strictly prohibited. The flight passed faster than I expected. We worked most of the time, reviewing projections, refining presentation slides, double-checking numbers. But between spreadsheets and financial models, something softer slipped in. Music preferences. Terrible childhood haircuts. foods we irrationally despised. For a few suspended moments, we weren't CEO and executive assistant. We were just two people sharing space. And that felt far more dangerous. Boston greeted us with crisp October air. The hotel lobby gleamed with marble and gold accents. The K.I.N.D. of place where every surface reflected light and wealth. The manager personally escorted us upstairs. "Your suites, Mr. Priestley," he announced smoothly, opening two adjacent doors. "Our finest accommodations. Connecting balconies, as requested." Of course. My suite alone was larger than the apartment I once shared with Christie. A king-size bed draped in pristine white linen. A marble bathroom with a soaking tub and glass shower. A living room overlooking the city skyline. Everything immaculate. Everything intimidating. I unpacked quickly and joined Noah in his suite to prepare for the dinner. He was on the phone when I entered, speaking fluent Mandarin. Another unexpected layer. He ended the call, shrugging off his jacket, rolling his sleeves to his elbows. "Dinner's at 8, he said. "They're traditional. Conservative. I need to impress them." "You always impress," I replied before I could stop myself. His eyes lifted to mine. Something unspoken flickered between us. "Your confidence is motivating," he said quietly. The restaurant that evening was understated luxury, dim lighting, polished silverware arranged with intimidating precision, wine bottles that probably cost more than my first year of college. I sat slightly to the side, tablet discreetly positioned, observing everything. 3 investors. Older. Impeccable suits. Watches heavy with understated power. The conversation flowed smoothly. Noah navigated every question with calm authority. Until one of them, Richard, shifted his attention to me. "Priestley," he said with an oily smile, "besides excellent numbers, you clearly have excellent taste in assistants. Beautiful and efficient, I assume." The air shifted instantly. Heat crawled up my spine. My jaw tightened. Noah didn't raise his voice. But something in him changed. "Miss Torres is my executive assistant because she is the best at what she does," he said coolly. "Her professional qualifications are unmatched." His tone left no room for debate. "And no. He continued, eyes steady, about the third quarter projections." The message was clear. Richard retreated. Dinner resumed. But I felt the echo of that moment long after. In the elevator, alone at last, I exhaled. "You didn't need to defend me," I said. "I can handle comments like that." "I know you can," he replied. "But I don't like people talking about you that way." "Why?" The word slipped out softer than intended. The elevator hummed upward. The space between us felt smaller. His gaze held mine, dark, intense, unguarded. His breathing shifted. So did mine. The elevator jolted gently to a stop. The doors opened. The moment shattered. "Good night, Angeline," he said tightly, stepping out first. "Rest. Tomorrow's long." I closed myself inside my suite, leaning against the door. My hands were trembling. Not because he defended me, but because of how it made me feel. Seen. Protected. Important. And that was far more dangerous. Sleep never came. At 11:30, I stepped onto the balcony, letting the cool air clear my head. Boston glittered below, lights stretching endlessly into the dark horizon. A knock at my door made me jump. Through the peephole, I saw him. Hands in his pockets. Hair slightly disheveled, like he'd run his fingers through it too many times. I opened the door. "Everything okay?" "I can't sleep." There was something different in his voice. Less controlled. "Do you want to talk?" I asked. He hesitated, then nodded. "The balconies connect," I said softly. We stepped outside. The cold air wrapped around us. The city pulsed below, distant and surreal. For a moment, we just sat there. No roles. No titles. No polished armor. My parents are alive, he said suddenly. But they might as well not be. I turned toward him. They call on birthdays. Christmas. Send expensive gifts. It's transactional. His jaw tightened. It's lonely growing up in a house full of everything except affection. The honesty in his voice caught me off guard. That's why you work so much, I said gently. To fill the silence. And you, he asked quietly. Why do you push yourself so hard? The word stuck at first. My parents died when I was 14, I said. Car accident. I went into foster care. Moved around. Learned quickly that the only person I can rely on is myself. The memory still carried weight. I'm afraid, I admitted. Afraid of going back to having nothing. Afraid of depending on someone and losing them. Afraid of not being enough. Angeline, he said, voice softer than I'd ever heard it. You are more than enough. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You're extraordinary. And it scares me how much I think about that. My heart stumbled. You're the first person in years who sees me as human, he continued quietly. Not as a business opportunity. Not as a resource. You challenge me. You argue with me. You make me laugh. The city lights shimmered below us. You're refreshing, he said. Addictive. The air between us felt fragile. Unstable. The wall we built wasn't just cracked anymore. It was breaking. I swallowed hard before finally admitting it in a quiet voice. Sometimes I feel inferior. He was the one who had offered me opportunity instead of pity. The one who treated me like an equal, even when every logical part of me knew we weren't standing on the same ground. He turned toward me so quickly that I startled. We are equals, Noah said firmly. Money doesn't change that. You're one of the strongest people I know. Everything you've accomplished, you did on your own. I was just born into the right family. The words landed deeper than he probably realized. Suddenly, we were standing far too close again. Close enough that I could see the subtle flecks of color in his eyes. Close enough to notice the faint pulse beating in his neck. His breathing had gone uneven, matching mine, and the air between us grew thick, electric, impossible to ignore. He leaned in. Or maybe I did. It didn't matter. The distance between us rank until I felt his breath against my skin. Until our lips were inches apart. Until the world narrowed to just this moment. And then I pulled back abruptly, awkwardly. My heart was pounding so hard it actually hurt. I can't, Angeline. There was pain in his voice. I can't, I repeated, standing up and putting physical space between us. I need this job. I can't risk complicating things. If this goes wrong, if I lose everything again, I can't. Noah stayed seated for a long moment, jaw tight, hands gripping the arms of the chair. When he finally stood, he nodded slowly. I understand. But his eyes told a different story. Disappointment. Controlled hurt. And something else, something intense enough to make me want to take it all back. To throw caution aside. To forget every logical reason and just feel. My voice came out hoarse. Early meeting tomorrow. Yes. He started toward his suite, then paused. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I would never let you lose anything. But I respect your decision. And then he was gone. I stood alone on the balcony, staring into the night, holding a broken heart and the painful certainty that I'd made the right choice, even though it felt completely wrong. The flight home on Sunday was torture. We tried to work, but everything had changed. The atmosphere between us was different, irreversibly so. Every accidental touch when passing documents felt like a spark. Every glance lingered too long. We couldn't return to cold professionalism, but we also couldn't cross the line I had drawn. We were stuck in emotional limbo. Mrs. Dawson noticed the moment we returned. Of course she did. That woman had radar for romantic tension. How was the trip? She asked innocently while I sorted through the accumulated mail. Productive? I kept my eyes on the envelopes. The meeting went well. The sound she made said she didn't believe a word of it. You two seem tense. It's just work. The lie sounded weak even to my own ears. Over. The following weeks, the tension only grew. Small accidental touches started happening with suspicious frequency. Our hands brushing when reaching for the same pen. Shoulders grazing while reviewing documents. Fingers meeting when passing coffee in the mornings. And the looks. God, the looks. Across the office during meetings. At dinner when Mrs. Dawson insisted we eat together. In the mornings when we crossed paths in the kitchen before either of us was fully awake. Mrs. Dawson observed it all with that knowing smile, but thankfully kept her commentary to herself. Instead, she somehow managed to leave us alone together far more often than coincidence would suggest. I need a date for an event. Noah announced it one October afternoon, stepping into my office with that forced brightness he used when he was uncomfortable. Corporate charity gala. Friday night. Do you want me to arrange someone? I asked, ignoring the unpleasant twist in my chest. No. He slid his hands into his pockets, his nervous habit. I want you to be my date. Professionally. There will be important contacts. I need someone with me who understands the business. Oh. My voice came out smaller than I intended. Of course. Professionally. I'll have a dress delivered, he added, avoiding my eyes. Something appropriate. The dress arrived Thursday. It was breathtaking, black, elegant, and undoubtedly worth more than 6 months of rent. I ran my fingers over the delicate fabric, trying to imagine myself wearing something like that. It's a work uniform, Noah said when I protested. That sarcastic smile returned. You can't show up in jeans. I rolled my eyes but accepted it. What choice did I have? Friday evening, I got ready slowly and carefully. The dress fit perfectly, hugging curves I hadn't even known I had. My makeup was subtle, elegant. My hair pulled into a loose bun. When I came down the stairs, Noah was waiting in the hall. He looked incredible in a black tuxedo. His eyes widened when he saw me. They traveled over me slowly, not disrespectfully, but appreciatively, almost reverently. You look stunning. Heat crept up my neck. It's the dress. It's not, he said softly, his voice dropping. It's definitely not just the dress. The ballroom was massive, glowing with luxury. Crystal chandeliers. Silk tablecloths. Guests wearing jewelry that probably cost more than entire neighborhoods. It felt like stepping into a movie. Noah guided me through the crowd with a light hand on my lower back, introducing me to executives and investors. His touch was professional, but it burned through the fabric of my dress. Then she appeared. Tall. Blonde. Perfectly styled. Wearing a red dress that showed endless sculpted legs. A model. Or an actress. Something like that. Noah. She approached with familiarity that made my stomach tighten. Victoria, he said politely, his tone distant. His hand stayed on my back. How are you? Better now, she replied, batting her eyelashes and completely ignoring me. We should catch up. Have that coffee you promised? I didn't promise anything, Noah said calmly. But Victoria wasn't discouraged. She touched his arm. Laughed too loudly. Flirted openly. And jealousy hit me hard, ugly, and irrational. He was my boss. Nothing more. But watching this beautiful woman touch him like that did something brutal to my chest. And who's your date? She finally asked, looking me up and down with cool assessment. Angeline Torres, Noah said, pulling me slightly closer. My executive assistant. Indispensable. Indispensable. The word should have made me feel valued. Instead, all I heard was assistant. Not girlfriend. Not romantic interest. Just indispensable employee. Victoria smiled, but her eyes stayed sharp. How lucky, she said. Competent assistants are so hard to find. When we finally walked away, I could feel her gaze burning into my back. Sorry about Victoria, Noah murmured. She's persistent. Ex-girlfriend? Something like that. Nothing serious. He guided me to the bar. Champagne? Yes. I needed it. We stood close, watching the crowd. I could feel the warmth of his body beside mine. You called me indispensable, I said quietly. He turned to me, eyes dark. Because you are. Not just at work, Angeline. In everything. Before I could reply, someone called him for photos. He left reluctantly. Victoria appeared beside me almost instantly. Is he a good boss? The best. She sipped her drink. Take good care of him. Noah deserves someone who understands his world. The message was clear. I didn't belong in it. But when Noah returned and immediately searched for me, when his face softened the moment he found me, when his hand settled back on my lower back like it naturally belonged there, I wondered if maybe she was wrong. Maybe he didn't want someone who understood his world. Maybe he wanted someone who made him forget it. And maybe I was tired of fighting what felt inevitable. Sometimes love doesn't arrive conveniently. Sometimes it comes from a completely different world. And when it does, one question always follows. Does love really conquer all? Chapter 4, The Almost. The week after the gala was unbearable. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just heavy. The kind of tension that makes the air feel thick, like the house itself is holding its breath. Noah and I avoided each other and searched for each other at the same time. I passed his hallway more often than necessary. He appeared in my office with excuses about paperwork he could have emailed. When we spoke, it was overly professional. Forced. The silences said more than words ever could. Every interaction left my heart racing and my thoughts spiraling. We were standing on the edge of something. And we both knew it. I realized that morning that the universe had officially run out of patience with us. I found her in the kitchen on Thursday, sunlight spilling through the windows while the coffee machine hissed in protest. Mrs. Dawson didn't even bother with pleasantries. She poured my cup, slid it across the counter with more force than necessary, and fixed me with a look that could end wars. You two are idiots, she announced flatly. I blinked. Nearly choked on my first sip. He loves you. You love him. End of story. What exactly are you waiting for? I stared into my coffee like it might offer guidance. Divine intervention, I muttered. She scoffed and pulled out a chair, sitting across from me with the kind of calm authority only years of life experience can give. Don't lie to me, dear. I'm too old for that. Her eyes softened, but her voice stayed firm. I've worked here for a decade. I know Noah. I've watched him date. I've seen women come and go. None of them ever lasted more than a few weeks before he lost interest completely. She leaned forward. And he has never looked at anyone the way he looks at you. I wrapped both hands around my cup. It's complicated, I whispered. I work for him. I depend on this job. If it goes wrong. And if it goes right, she interrupted gently. She tilted her head. My dear, life is too short to let fear make your choices. That man upstairs is absolutely in love. I see it every day. In the way he says your name. And how his face changes when you walk into a room. He's suffering just as much as you are. I didn't answer. Because she was right. And admitting that out loud would make everything real. And terrifying. Friday arrived with a storm of pressure. Noah had the meeting, the one he'd been obsessing over for weeks. A multi-million-dollar contract that would decide the future of an entire division. He was already intense on a normal day, but now he was practically vibrating with tightly controlled stress. I found him in his office at 6 in the morning. He was already buried in paperwork, hair messy from running his hands through it too many times, shirt wrinkled like he'd slept in it. He probably had. "Good morning," I said softly. "Coffee," he replied without looking up. "And if you can figure out how to add 3 hours to the day, that'd be great too." I went to the kitchen and made it exactly how he liked, strong, no sugar. Then, on impulse, I grabbed a Post-it note. My hand moved before my brain could stop it. I wrote quickly, stuck it to the cup, and carried the coffee back to his desk. I set it down and escaped to my office before I could see his reaction. But through my half-open door, I watched. He lifted the cup, saw the note, and froze. His shoulders dropped like someone had lifted a weight off his spine. A small, genuine smile appeared, the rare kind that reached his eyes. He touched the yellow paper delicately, like it was something fragile and precious. "You're going to kill it. You always do." That was all it said. Simple. True. And somehow powerful enough to disarm the most controlled man I knew. The rest of the day passed in a blur of second-hand anxiety. I knew the meeting started at 2. I knew it would last at least 3 hours. I knew everything depended on how he presented those numbers. I tried to work, but kept glancing at the clock every 5 minutes. At 5:30, the front door opened. Fast footsteps. Different energy. My heart jumped before my brain caught up. I stood automatically. Noah appeared in my doorway, and his face told the whole story, bright eyes, huge smile, pure euphoria radiating off him. "We got the contract," he said, loud and happy and completely unlike his usual restrained tone. "We closed it. Every term we wanted. It was perfect. I didn't even think. I just moved. Noah, that's incredible. I knew you could do it." And suddenly we were hugging. His arms wrapped around me, strong and warm, pulling me into his chest. My arms went around his neck. I felt the tension in his muscles beneath his shirt. His cologne mixed with something unmistakably him, familiar, grounding, dangerously addictive. The hug should have lasted 3 seconds. Maybe 4. Professional celebration. Instead it stretched past 5, 6, 7. Neither of us pulled away. His chest rose and fell against mine. His breathing deepened. His fingers shifted slightly on my back, not deliberate, just instinct. When we finally separated, it was slow. Reluctant. And we didn't really separate at all. His hand stayed on my waist. Mine stayed on his shoulders. Too close. Too dangerous. Our eyes met, and the world narrowed down to just us. It wasn't the first time we'd looked at each other. But it was the first time without walls. Without excuses. Without professionalism standing between us. Just truth. "Angeline," he said hoarsely. My name sounded different on his lips. Like a question and a prayer at the same time. Reality slammed into me. I stepped back. "Noah, we can't." "Why not?" He stepped forward, closing the distance I tried to create. "Give me one real reason." "You're my boss," I said, panic creeping into my voice. "I depend on this job." "What if I wasn't?" His eyes searched mine, stripping away every weak excuse. "What if we changed that?" "But you are." I crossed my arms like they could protect me. "That's reality." "Then fire me." The words came out raw and impulsive. "Fire me right now." I laughed, but it sounded brittle. "Noah, I'm serious." He dragged his hands through his hair. "I can't pretend this is just professional anymore. I think about you constantly. When I travel, I count the hours until I'm back. When you're in the same room, I can't focus on anything else. It's always you." My heart pounded painfully. "You're a billionaire," I whispered. "I'm the broke student who fell asleep in your car. This doesn't make sense." "It makes perfect sense." He approached slowly, like I might bolt. "You're the only person who sees me. Not the money. Not the title. Just the man. And I see you, strong, smart, sarcastic, the woman who broke into my car and changed everything." "Noah, please." My voice cracked. "What's hard," he said quietly, now inches away, "is standing this close and pretending I don't want to touch you. What's hard is hearing your voice and not getting lost in it. What's hard is seeing you every day and not being able to have you." Then he kissed me. There was no hesitation. No softness. Months of tension exploded all at once. His hands framed my face. His fingers slid into my hair, undoing the bun I'd made that morning. My arms wrapped around his neck automatically, pulling him closer. He tasted Lee. Cooked coffee and something sweet. The sound he made when I deepened the kiss was low and desperate. We moved until my back hit the bookshelf. The books rattled. I didn't care. Nothing existed but him. When we finally broke apart to breathe, his forehead rested against mine. We were both shaking. Reality crashed back. "I can't," I whispered, pressing my hands to his chest. "If this goes wrong, I lose everything." "What if I promised you wouldn't?" His thumbs traced slow circles through my blouse. "Even if we broke up, I'd never leave you with nothing." "You can't promise that." Tears burned in my eyes. "I don't want it to end," he said quietly. "I've never felt this before. It scares me. But losing you scares me more." I saw it in his eyes as fear and love tangled together. The man who commanded boardrooms stood emotionally bare in front of me. I opened my mouth to answer. And the phone rang. Sharp. Loud. Violent. We both stared at it. Christie's name flashed on the screen. "Answer it," Noah said, stepping back. My hands trembled as I picked up. "Angel, I'm so sorry to call you at work," Christie said breathlessly. "But we have an emergency." My stomach dropped. "The apartment," she continued. "The plumbing exploded. Everything's flooded. Like, everything. The firefighters are here." And in less than 10 seconds, my entire life had been reduced to a sentence I wasn't ready to hear. "You'll have to leave for at least 2 weeks." 2 weeks. My stomach dropped so fast it felt physical, like missing a step in the dark. "What?" "But I'm going to Jason's place," Christie was saying on the other end of the phone. Then her voice shifted, softer, worried. "What about you? Where are you going to stay?" We didn't have renter's insurance. Of course we didn't. Which meant no relocation help. No backup plan. No safety net. I glanced at Noah. He was watching me carefully, reading my expression, catching enough of my side of the conversation to understand this wasn't minor. I don't know." I admitted quietly. "I'll figure something out." "Angel, I'm sorry. I know this is the worst timing," Christie sighed. "But you need to come now. They're closing the building. Grab whatever you can salvage." "I'm on my way." I hung up and looked at Noah. I must have looked as shaken as I felt. "My apartment is flooded," I said. "I need to go." "I'll send the car." He was already pulling out his phone. "James will take you." He paused mid-motion, eyes locking with mine. "And Angeline, you have a place to stay here. You always have." The words hovered between us. Heavy. Not just about a spare room. Not just about convenience. It was about us. About the kiss. About everything we hadn't said. "I'll think about it," I muttered, grabbing my bag before I could lose my nerve. "I need to go." I left before I could see his reaction. Before I could turn back and finish what we had started. In the back seat of the car, I touched my lips. Still tender. still warm from that kiss. The flooded apartment. His offer. That kiss that had changed everything. It felt like the universe was pushing me toward something I'd been too afraid to choose. Like fighting it was as pointless as trying to stop the tide. But first, I had to deal with the disaster. Because apparently, when it rains, it pours. Chapter 5, The Choice and the Beginning. What if the wrong place at the wrong time was exactly where you were meant to be? When I arrived at the apartment building, the damage hit me like a wall. Water everywhere. Not puddles, standing pools soaking into the floorboards. The air already smelled damp, heavy, with that sharp hint of mold beginning to bloom. Furniture sagged under the weight of water. Drawers swollen shut. Books warped beyond recognition. There was no soft way to describe it. The apartment was destroyed. Firefighters had taped off sections of the hallway, moving people in and out in short, controlled intervals. We were only allowed to grab essentials before the building would be sealed. For repairs. Christy stood in the corridor with Jason, surrounded by hastily packed bags. Her eyes were red, but she was holding it together. I saved our clothes. Some books, she said, gesturing toward the plastic bags. Then she looked past me into the wreckage. The rest is gone. How long? I asked one of the firefighters coordinating the scene. At least 2 weeks for structural repairs, he said, checking his clipboard. Maybe 3. And you'll need professional cleaning after. Professional cleaning. Expensive. Of course it would be. I stared at my belongings stuffed into garbage bags and felt the familiar squeeze of financial uncertainty wrap around my chest. The building's insurance would handle the structure. Not our things. Not our lives. You can stay with us, Jason offered. It was polite. Technically generous. But his tight smile said everything. His apartment was small, barely enough space for him and Christy. I won't intrude, I said gently. I'll figure something out. Christy pulled me aside, lowering her voice. You know you have somewhere to go, she said. Noah practically offered you the entire house. It's complicated, I murmured, the memory of his mouth on mine flashing through me. Life is complicated, she squeezed my hand. But you don't have to carry everything alone. He cares about you. And you care about him. Sometimes you have to accept help. I gathered what I could carry and said goodbye. James was waiting in the car, patient as always. During the drive back, I stared out the window. My phone felt heavier than usual in my pocket. Should I call Noah and accept? Look for a cheap hotel? Try a hostel? The truth was brutal. I couldn't afford weeks in a hotel. And the idea of being anywhere else, after that kiss, felt wrong in a way I couldn't explain. When the car pulled into the driveway, Noah wasn't in his office. He was waiting in the entrance hall. Hands in his pockets. Jaw tight. Eyes scanning the bags in my hands. Is that all, yo? You could save? There was anger in his voice, but not at me. Most of it, I said, dropping the bags to the floor. Suddenly too tired to pretend I was fine. The rest is destroyed. Stay here. Not a suggestion. A decision. The guest room is yours for as long as you need. No discussion. Noah. Temporarily, he added quickly, as if that made it safer. Until the apartment is ready. It makes sense. You already work here. You're here most of the time anyway. It's practical. Practical. We both knew this wasn't just about practicality. Okay, I said. Because I didn't really have another option. And because I didn't want one. A small, genuine smile crossed his face. I'll have Mrs. Dawson prepare the room. The first few days, I kept my distance. I used the room only to sleep. Avoided lingering in shared spaces. Treated it like a temporary arrangement. Transactional. Controlled. But the mansion had its own gravity. Tuesday morning, I woke early and went downstairs for coffee, only to find Noah already in the kitchen. Barefoot. Hair slightly messy. Sleep still clinging to his voice. "Morning," he said. "Want breakfast?" He was making scrambled eggs. Simple. Ordinary. And somehow that made it more dangerous. We sat at the kitchen island as sunlight spilled through the tall windows. We talked about nothing important, his schedule, my classes, a ridiculous news article he'd read. It felt domestic. Natural. Like we'd done it for years. Thursday night, I came home late from class and found him on the couch watching a documentary on behavioral economics. "This one's good," I said from the doorway. "Sit," he replied, gesturing beside him. I should have gone upstairs. I didn't. I left space between us at first. Respectable space. But the documentary grew interesting. I leaned forward to see a graph. He shifted closer. At some point, our shoulders touched. Neither of us moved away. We shared a bowl of popcorn. Our fingers brushed once. Then again. When the documentary ended, the house was quiet. We stayed there in silence. Too aware of each other. "I should go to sleep," I whispered. "You should," he agreed. Neither of us moved for another 15 minutes. When sanity finally returned, I stood abruptly. "Good night," and practically fled upstairs. Mrs. Dawson saw everything. Said nothing. But somehow ensured breakfast was always ready for two. That dinner was warm when he came home late. That we had subtle reasons to share space. The domestic rhythm became addictive. Morning coffee. Late-night conversations. Quiet laughter. I found myself memorizing him. How he took his coffee. The specific crease between his brows when he was concentrating. The deep, unguarded sound of his real laugh. And from the way he looked at me, soft, observant, I knew he was doing the same. 2 weeks after I moved in, on a Friday night, we were watching another movie. A comedy neither of us was actually paying attention to. I was exhausted. Classes. Work. Emotions I didn't know how to manage. The couch was comfortable. Noah was warm beside me. At some point, without thinking, my head rested against his shoulder. He tensed. Then relaxed. His arm slid around me, pulling me slightly closer. "Safe. Right. I'm just going to close my eyes for a minute," I murmured. "Sure," he said softly. "Just a minute." I fell asleep like that. The same way I had once fallen asleep in his car months ago. Except this time, it wasn't accidental. It was a choice. I woke briefly when I felt movement. Strong arms lifting me effortlessly. I should have protested. Insisted I could walk. But I was warm. And safe. And too tired to fight it. "Noah," I murmured. "Shoo," he whispered. "Just taking you to bed." "Sleep." "Thank you," I mumbled, words slurring as sleep pulled me under again. I didn't see him lay me down gently. Didn't see him pull the blanket up to my chin. Didn't see him pause at the doorway. Looking back at me. I didn't even realize he'd whispered it. His voice was so low, so quiet, Most thought I imagined it. "How am I ever going to let you go?" But the next morning, sunlight spilled gently across the bedroom floor, warming my face, and I woke with a heavy certainty in my chest. We couldn't keep doing this. Circling each other. Pretending it was temporary. Acting like it didn't mean anything. Something had to change. I found Noah already in the kitchen, dressed for the day, coffee steaming beside him as he scrolled through something on his tablet. The quiet hum of the house filled the space between us. When I stepped inside, he looked up, and his expression softened instantly. "Good morning," he said. "Did you sleep okay?" There was something different in his voice. Something intimate. Unspoken. New. My heart started racing. Noah, we need to talk. The words escaped before I could lose my nerve. He set the tablet aside immediately and turned fully toward me, giving me his complete attention. About. I drew in a slow breath. About this. About us. I can't pretend anymore. I just can't. Angeline. Please, I interrupted softly. Let me finish. He nodded. I swallowed. You scare me, I admitted. This scares me. The way I feel when I'm near you. When you look at me. When you kiss me. My voice trembled. I've never felt anything like this. And I'm terrified that if I let myself fall completely, one day you'll realize you could have someone better. And I'll be shattered. There is no better. He stood and walked around the island, stopping right in front of me. Angeline, he said quietly. I can't pretend either. I love you. Completely. His voice broke just slightly. And that scares me, because I've never loved anyone like this. Never wanted to spend every second with someone. Never felt like I needed another person just to breathe right. Tears burned behind my eyes. I love you too, I whispered. But how does this work? I still work for you. How do we separate professional from personal? Then we change it. He took my hands, his Thursday. MBS brushing gently over my knuckles. Do you want to keep working? Yes, I answered instantly. But not as your assistant. Not if we're together. I need autonomy. Independence. He thought for a moment. Mrs. Dawson is considering retirement, he said slowly. I need someone to manage the property. Lead the staff. Higher pay. Full authority. You'd be in charge. He hesitated. Or, I can help you find something elsewhere if you'd rather have complete distance. I weighed both options. Leaving would give me independence, but it would also mean fewer mornings like this. Fewer shared coffees. Fewer quiet evenings. Staying meant building something real, right here. I want to stay, I said, squeezing his hands. With you. But as an equal. Never because I need the money or the house. His smile lit up his entire face. It was always equal, he said. From the moment you woke up snoring in my car and completely wrecked my life. I do not snore, I protested, laughing through tears. You absolutely do, he replied, pulling me closer and brushing my tears away. And it's adorable. Then he kissed me. Not desperately. Not fearfully. With certainty. With promise. When we finally pulled apart, breathless and smiling, he rested his forehead against mine. So, we're official. Official, I confirmed. But I'm paying back my college money. Loan, not gift. He rolled his eyes. You're impossible. You knew that when you hired me. I did, he said, kissing me softly. That's exactly why. The following months flew by in a blur of adjustments. Mrs. Dawson personally trained me for property management, openly delighted by our relationship. I knew from day one, she told me with a knowing smile. You two were painfully obvious. My apartment was repaired, but I never went back. Christy understood immediately. She helped move her things back, hugging me tightly. You deserve this, she said. You deserve to be happy. And I was. Not in a fairy tale way. In a real way. We argue. Sometimes. Had rough days. Disagreed over small things. But we always came back to each other. Always talked. Always remembered why we chose this. I continued my studies, paying my own tuition despite Noah's protests. He respected it, even when he wanted to argue. That respect made everything real. 6 months later, Christy visited one Saturday afternoon and found us in the kitchen. Noah was attempting some complicated online recipe and failing spectacularly. I was laughing so hard my stomach hurt. She leaned against the doorway, smiling. Who would have thought? He fell asleep in the wrong car and woke up in a fairy tale. It's not a fairy tale, I said, stealing a piece of whatever Noah was ruining. It's real. Messy sometimes. But real. Noah pulled me close, kissed the top of my head. Perfect like this. And it was. Later that night, after Christy left and the kitchen recovered from Noah's culinary disaster, we went for a walk. I climbed into the back seat on purpose. He followed, amused. Breaking into my car again? Technically I live here, I said, cuddling closer. Half the car is mine. Half of everything is yours. Romantic, I mumbled into his kiss. Financially questionable. I learned from the best. We stayed there for a while before heading inside. To our house. To our life. And as we walked hand in hand, I thought about how it all started. A mistake. The wrong car. Sometimes mistakes lead you exactly where you're meant to be. And yes, I still snore. Noah never lets me forget it. Behind the scenes, this entire story started with one image, an exhausted girl waking up in the wrong car and meeting a sarcastic billionaire. From there, everything unfolded. The tension. The near kisses. The vulnerability on the balcony. Mrs. Dawson calling them out. The flooded apartment forcing intimacy. It all came full circle, ending in the car again, this time by choice. Mistakes sometimes take us exactly where we need to go. And if you'd like to see more ST Aries like this, click the video on your screen.